All right, y'all. So let's get into this breakdown of John chapter 19. I'm going to try to get this in one part, but it's long today as well. So, chapter context. When Jesus was first brought to Pilatus, his innocence was obvious. Duh, John 18:36-38. However, the mob refuses to be satisfied with anything less than crucifixion. Pilatus gives in to these demands. John, who was present for the entire gory spectacle, notes several instances of fulfilled prophecy. Psalms 22:18, Psalm 69:21, Exodus 12:46, Zechariah 12:10. Jesus is then buried in the borrowed tomb of a rich man, Isaiah 53:9. To complete yet another Old Testament prediction, a guard will be posted to ensure no one steals the body, Matthew 27:62-68, which will only serve to confirm that Jesus' eventual resurrection was a true miracle. John 20:1-8. Okay, let's get into this breakdown. Despite Jesus' obvious innocence, John 18:36-38, and the personal vendetta of his enemies, Matthew 27:18, the Roman government continues to try and appease the mob. What should have been an obvious prisoner exchange failed. John 18:39-40, Pilate tries to satisfy the crowd with bloodlust by having Jesus viciously whipped and mocked, then presented to the crowd. The term translated flog can also be rendered as scourged. A Roman scourge or flagrum was multi-headed weighted whip capacity of lethal injury. The man paraded to the public afterwards would have been ragged and maimed figure. John 19:1-5. The crowd's reaction is shocking. They respond not with sympathy, but for a mutilated man, but hatred for an enemy. Crucifixion was deliberately intended as to dishonor and torture, so much so that Roman citizens were exempt from it. Not only is the mob demanding Jesus die, but they want him to die in the most graphic, horrible way possible. This partly explains Pilatus' rhetorical response, "Do it yourself," despite knowing full well the Jews can do no such thing. This reply, explaining that they are angry over Jesus' claims to be the Son of God, only makes Pilatus more nervous. Roman myths included demigods who hid among mortals. Those who abused these half-deities often suffered a result. Combined with his wife ominous warnings, Matthew 27:19, the governor has reasons to be concerned. John 19:6-8. Another private interview with Jesus gives no helpful answers. Jesus only responds to Pilatus' frustrated demand for answers with a humbling reminder. Pilatus' authority is not his own. It is merely borrowed from others. In a fundamental sense, Pilatus has no control over this situation. He governs at the whims of the empire, is being bullied by an unruly mob, Matthew 27:24. It is subject to the sovereign will of God. Pilatus will then exchange tactics, apparently looking to avoid total humiliation. Despite the objections of Jesus' enemies, he will repeatedly refer to Jesus as the King of Jews and issues a death sentence accordingly. John 19:9-16. We know little about Goliath, other than it was just outside the borders of Jerusalem, near enough to be easily seen by many people. It was common for Romans to force condemned men to carry the horizontal beam of the cross to the execution site. Jesus had already been weakened by scourging, so impatient soldiers forced a bystander to help. Matthew 27:32, Mark 15:21, and then Luke 23:26. Crucifixion involved nailing a victim with cruel precision through the wrist and feet, arms apart and knees bent. Primarily, a goal was to minimize blood loss and maximize pain. The result was an agonizing, horrific death that could last hours or even days. John 19:17 through 18. Crucified victims were frequently labeled with their crimes as a written warning to others. Pilates' chosen inscription is deliberately offensive. Jesus' enemies do not accept him as their king, but the sign reflects Rome's dominance over Israel. This is written in multiple languages and seen by many people, making it the first time Jesus is proclaimed to the world as king. In Latin, the words recorded here would be, I'm not even going to try that, but depictions of the cross in artwork frequently include the initials INRI. In John 19 through 22. John 13:23 and then 20 and 2 seems to be the only disciple willing to approach the cross as Jesus is dying. At last, openly, Luke 23:49. Women associated with Jesus are braver and several are present. They see Jesus' clothes being divided up among the soldiers in fulfillment of prophecy, Psalm 22:18. As this happens, Jesus puts his mother Mary into John's care. His other siblings might have rejected her for being loyal to someone they thought was insane. John 7:5, Mark 3:21. This places John right at the foot of the cross to witness Jesus' death and its gory confirmation. John 19:23 through 27. Another Testament passage is echoed when Jesus is offered a vile liquid in response to thirst. Psalm 69:21. John promptly notes that Jesus utters the Greek words tetelestai. The word implies something paid, complete, or fulfilled. Atonement for the sin of mankind is utterly and entirely completed in this sacrifice. Amen. Without any room or need for the word. 1 Peter 3:18 and then Hebrews 10:12 through 14. It's also notable that Jesus' acts of death is said to be deliberate. He gave up his life. Though his death was physically unavoidable by now, Jesus has come to the moment by his own will according to his own choice. John 10:17 through 18, Matthew 26:39, Philippians 2:7. In every sense, Christ's death was a voluntary act. John 19:28 through 30. Okay, come back for part 2.